All right, so let's look here. Defensively, I think these two are on the roster at this point. Again, we should rephrase it. Are in the mix to make the roster. Obviously, we don't know. We're too far out to even say anything. But we'll just say in the mix. Arston, I think, is in the mix, and I think so is Alex Freeman.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Alex Freeman has certainly earned that spot, and I think Max Arfson is certainly on the list too.
I think this one is he's not in the mix anymore just because of an injury. I think Cameron Carter Vickers is out. I think ACL injury. He's too far behind the eight ball at this point.
Yeah,
He got injured back in September or October, sometime in the fall, and I think he's ultimately out of this mix.
yeah, and our way too early projections. I mean, he was someone that I had on my list. He was someone that I actually thought would be a part of that starting 11 for the national team. But yeah, I mean, knees are tough to mess with, and his was obviously pretty bad. So I think yeah, you're right, and I think fitness level, I just don't think he would be in a good spot, even if he was able to come back.
Mark McKenzie. I think it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know where I fall on him necessarily. I think probably out if I were to say anything, but certainly on the bubble. I mean, what says you?
I think it depends between it's a battle between him and Miles Robinson at this point. I think I would give the nod to Miles Robinson, but McKenzie's
Yeah.
100% in the mix. Robinson missed the last World Cup because of a ACL injury against Mexico in the 2021 Gold Cup final. So I think Robinson is going to do everything he can in his power to make this World Cup roster. These three are set in stone. Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Jedi. No reason to talk about that.
Yeah.
Miles Robinson, I just said my point. What do you think on Robinson? He's definitely in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, if he was in the mix to make the 22 World Cup, then I imagine he's in the mix to make this one too. I mean, it's unfortunate he went down to injury and the timing of all that, but I mean, if you give me the two options, McKenzie or Miles Robinson, I probably am giving the nod to Miles Robinson, me personally.
Nathan Harriel, no way. These three are interesting. Joe Scally, John Tolkien, and Austin Trusty. I think if I were to take, because if we're looking at outside backs here, I think Arfston, or wing backs, I should say, Arfston, Freeman, Serginho Dest, obviously I haven't mentioned. He's in there as well. We'll say that I think he's on the roster anyway, but he's certainly in the mix. But I think Freeman,
Yeah.
Arfston, Dest, Jedi are those, and I think there's only one spot out of those three, and I think that's between Scally, Tolkien, and Trusty. I think it goes to Scally. He's played a ton with Mach and Gladbach. He always got the short end of the stick when it came to Berhalter because the way that he was set up, it was always against Joe Scally. It was always we got to put him on an island against the team's best left winger. So I always felt bad for him, but
Yeah.
he's always playing a ton with Mach and Gladbach. Tolkien, impressive window when he played against Paraguay and Uruguay. Impressive window, but I don't think he's done enough. Trusty, I could see potential on this kid. He scored yesterday in the Europa League, but I don't think he could be in the mix, but I don't see him making the roster.
Yeah, Joe Scally is one name that I feel like has continually come up in our kind of overseas overview conversations. And yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the way that, I mean, Greg Berhalter, I feel like had his guys. I feel like there wasn't much fluctuation in a lot of the teams that we saw in bigger tournaments, especially knockout tournaments, and even with the World Cup. Like I felt like we kind of knew right from the beginning. There wasn't as much in terms of question marks as what we've seen from Mauricio Pochettino. So, but Joe Scally has been a consistent name on our list. So, no, I like your breakdown there.
Tristan Blackman, MLS Player of the Year for Vancouver. I think he's 100% in the mix. I thought he was impressive in that Japan game, really, and he's been
Yeah.
impressive all year round. Does he eventually make it into Miami? I think he could, but at the moment, no. But I think Tristan
Hmm.
Blackman is 100% in the mix.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue he's probably on the roster. I don't think he's a starter, clearly, but I think in terms of valuable bench minutes in a position, late substitution where we need him, yeah, for sure, 100%.
George Campbell, no. Marlon Fossey, no. Dewan Jones, no. But then there's my guy, Noah Kai Banks. Better be on this damn roster. Kid's a stud. And if I look at it, even if guys, again, he's my guy, so I got to put him on on the starting roster. Do I think he starts? No. But at the same time, you got to look at Tim Ream. Those legs, I don't know if they're going to make it the whole time. So I would
Yeah.
say Noah Kai Banks is going to be simply in a role to kind of just cover for Tim Ream.
Yeah, and I can certainly see that. No contest from me. I think Noah Kai Banks is has proven his place and deserves a spot.
Dewan Jones, no, but that wraps up defenders. Moving on to midfielders, we'll just say Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams are for sure on it anyway, so no reason to debate those two. But
Yeah.
these two right off the bat, Brendan Aronson, Diego Luna.
Uh, Brendan Aronson, yes, I think he's on the roster. Diego Luna, it's hard, right? Because you you like to see the passion, the fire, the energy. I know that y'all like to get up in my chest about my love for Diego Luna. But you fall in love with the story. You fall in love with the player and the way that they carry themselves and conduct themselves. And obviously, he was someone that we were really high on from a skill set perspective. Though, when we put that one-on-one comparison, or you were talking about, who would Aronson trump in that position? It would be, if I'm taking him head to head right now, I would take Aronson. So that's not to say Diego Luna isn't in the mix. I think he's in the mix. I just think if I were to lean one way or the other, I would lean towards being out on the World Cup and not in on the World Cup, which is unfortunate because I like the kid. I think he's got a great story, but I think a move to Europe is where he needs to go. I think that needs to be the next step in his career path.
Look, Aronson gets the nod over Luna in my opinion, and I thought the Gold Cup final told me everything about Diego Luna. Disappeared in the whole game. Didn't do much at all. And if I'm giving a spot to a player, he's in the mix for sure. But I think if I'm giving a spot here for Diego Luna, I'd rather see players who make an impact. I don't care who you are, but goals against Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago don't move the needle for me at all. And I get he was able to dominate against the smaller teams, the smaller countries, and that's fine. I mean, he's out there to do his job. You can only go out and play who you're supposed to play, and I get it.
Yeah.
Good story for sure. Hardworking player, 100%. But if I'm looking at Diego Luna, disappeared in big moments, and if I'm putting him out there in the World Cup, there's 10, 15 teams that are better than Mexico. And if we're trying to play, if we're trying to make a deep run here, especially in the knockout stage, Luna's going to have to show up in some big spots, and he didn't do it for me against Mexico. Coming off the bench, made a few things happen, but for the majority, just kind of just was quiet. So I can't really put Diego Luna over an Aronson. Aronson's been showing up so far, and he's dealt with a lot of stuff between the Leeds fans. So I think Aronson's over Luna at this point. Luna's 100% still in the mix. I don't think that, but if I had a decision between the two, Aronson 100%. Aiden Morris, Christian Roldan. Those two are interesting to me because I think Roldan's going to be on the roster just because of the most recent camps, and he hasn't played horrible in them, so I can't really say he's been bad. Aiden Morris is one that's always been floating around. I think both are in the mix, but if I had to give a nod to one or the other, I think it would be Roldan over Morris, but both of these two are 100% going to be in the mix.
I think Roldan, well, he's been starting in a lot of those games in the previous windows. So I mean, I would have to agree with you again on that one. I think Roldan gets the nod. I think he's looked impressive, and I think if there's been one player that I feel like a lot of fans of the U.S. men's national team have kind of pointed out and been like, really, like that guy's involved, is Roldan, and just how MLS heavy a lot of these windows have been with him being in the front of that. But I think he's played well. I think he's been in good form, and I think he's obviously going to be in the mix. I don't know if he's going to start, but I mean, I think he's right there.
James Sands, no. I think Morris and Christian Roldan are both better than him, regardless. Tanner Tessman, he's an interesting one. I think he's a bench player, especially if Adams and McKennie maybe get in some caution trouble in terms of the bookings. I think he plays, and he started the last one against Uruguay, so I think he's 100% in the mix, and he's played well for his club. So I would say yes, Tessman's got to be in the mix.
I agree. I second that.
Malik Tillman, no doubts about that one. This one's interesting. Sebastian Berhalter.
No,
You
I'm
don't
gonna
think
go with
so?
no on this one.
He
No,
he ends up in a lot of these
I've
camps though.
he does, and I've been impressed by him in stretches. He is I don't know how many goals he's assisted on this past year, but I know he assisted on one in the or a couple in the Gold Cup, right? And then I think another one towards the end. I think one of those goals that Gio Reyna got, he assisted on. So it's looked okay. Um, but no, I'm still leaning no for some reason. But I think the U.S. men's national team might find a way to put him on there just simply because of you know.
I think he's in the mix. I think Berhalter's in the mix to make it still. He's showed up in every single window, I believe. I think he's been in every camp. So I know there's a little bit of continuity there. I know you want to keep a little bit of continuity if you're trying to build a roster like this.
Yeah,
Do I think he makes the roster? If he does, he's the 26th or 25th player. But I definitely feel like there's maybe a little nepotism in that one. Gio Reyna.
I think Gio's in the mix. I would like to imagine Gio's in the mix. I mean, after he played to close out 2025, so I would certainly hope he has a chance. But yeah, it's just the way I see it.
I think Reyna's in the mix. I think that last window where he looked really good, scored a goal, assisted in a game as well. I think that was Paraguay. I believe that he did that against Paraguay. I think
Yeah,
that game and that window ultimately was do or die for Reyna in terms of if he sucked, I don't think he was ever going to get another callback. But he
right.
performed really, really well, and he's going to get it done. Or he got it done, excuse me, and I think he's now in the mix. If he didn't perform that way, I think it would have been he's heading home and not even going to be in the discussion in March. But I think he's 100%
Right.
now in March. This one is always weird because he always, he's been playing in La Liga forever, Johnny Cardoso, but he doesn't seem to ever play for the U.S. So I just feel like he's not even in the mix. But I don't know, like he always is playing in La Liga but never does anything for the U.S. Never gets call up. So I would just say he's not coming at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I would probably lean the same way on that. Yeah. I mean, circling back on the Geo point, no, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I just think, the truth is that he earned, as you said, earned the ability to get a call back with those last two games. But, everything obviously comes down to what we see moving forward, right? So can he continue that run of form? That's the biggest question with him. And I think Geo, that some of the drama around transferring and teams and everything else outside of the U.S. men's national team, has that created a distraction for him too? Because it's just a lot of moving pieces when it comes to Gio Reyna. So all important questions, but certainly think he's in the mix. But no, I agree with you on that point.
I think Cordoso's out. Simply doesn't play. These two are
Yeah,
pretty simple. Paxton Aronson, brother of Brandon Aronson, no. Quinn Sullivan, no. And then Brian Gutierrez, Luca Delator. I would say Luca Delator has to be in the mix. He just seems to be a player, but I don't see him ever. If he plays, I don't think or if he makes it, I don't think he ever plays. Brian Gutierrez, probably
yeah.
no. But and then the rest of Sean's, I don't even know. I would say no. Caden Clark, probably no. Milhojevic, probably no. And Milevich, probably no. But I would say Luca Del
hmm
Toro is probably in the mix out of that whole group. But those players don't move the needle for me at all.
Yeah, if anybody, it's him. But yeah, outside of that, yeah, I don't really see anybody on that group
Uh,
really
for,
making that big of a difference.
Forwards, the first three, real simple. Balogun, Pulisic, Weah, barring injury, they're on the list, or they're in the
Yeah.
mix. This one's interesting. Alex and Dejas.
I would certainly say in the mix. I mean, he looked really solid in the stretches that we did play him. Obviously, we didn't see him as much. I feel like in the later windows. But I mean, I would put him in there. I don't think he's a starter, but I would still put him in there.
I would agree. I think he's in the mix. If he makes it, I don't think he. I think you still would have an Aronson ahead of him, possibly out of the wing. I think you could have a Malik Tillman ahead of him. So I think he's like a second or third option off the bench.
Yeah.
This one again. These two a little interesting. Actually, we do all these three at all. Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi, Patrick Ajuman.
Pepe is interesting simply because of the injuries. Um, I still think that I still think there's a fighting chance. Ajiman is interesting. You talk about disappearing in big time spots. Patrick Ajiman completely disappeared in a lot of spots this last year for the U.S. men's national team. I mean, there were stretches in which he just couldn't finish. And so I think if there was one player that the spotlight in a negative way was really being shined on, it was Ajiman, especially in the Gold Cup. So I just for Patrick Ajiman is just he's a tricky one. So in the mix, sure. Again, leaning out more than in. Ricardo Pepi is interesting again simply because of the injuries. You know, can he get back into shape and then prove that he deserves a spot? Outside of that, I'm not sure. But at least when it comes to those two, that's kind of the way I'm looking at this.
Uh, be looking at this, I would say Ajaman is probably the worst one out of the three that I named. He I don't think he can dribble to save his life. To be quite honest with you, and again, I know he has scored recently in a couple of games for over in the championship. So hey, maybe he runs into a good stretch of form before June. Maybe he shows up in March, or before May, excuse me, and maybe shows up in March. But if I'm looking at
Yep.
it, I think Pepe. He's supposed to be out 2 months, so he's had a couple weeks. So I would say, well, it's not till another month and a half until he's really given a go. Which if he stays healthy, I think Pepe's 100% in. Haji Wright's another one. I think if I'm looking at a third string striker or a second string striker, I think Pepe and Wright are those two guys, and I think Haji Wright should 100% be in the mix. Scored against Australia in that friendly. But no, I think Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi, and Ajaman. I think Wright and Pepi get in over Ajaman because you also got to think Fuller and Balogun is the other striker in that mix. So I think Ajaman is odd man out. Is he in the
Yeah.
mix? 100%. He's still in the mix because Haji Wright and Ricardo Pepi and might hit a bad run of form, maybe get injured, and it's still only January, about to enter February. This one's a little interesting as well. Damian Downs. He's played in a couple of camps, and is he in the mix? I think you have to see a couple of injuries before he even makes the roster. Is he in the mix? I, I think it's a slim chance he makes the roster, but is he in the mix? I think he's on the outside looking in terms of the whole mix.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely agree. I just think he has to have a couple of dominoes fall in front of him if he wants a chance.
Brian White, no. Griffin Yao, no. Interesting one. Josh Sargent.
No, no, I don't think so. No, with all the drama that's happening, and also like the way he started the club season, he was really off to a torrid start. So there was a belief that Josh Sargent could, if anything, maybe be our main striker. Maybe he would be in Flo's position, but um, it's teetered off quite a bit. And then obviously with all the drama surrounding him and club and moving back to Toronto, I still think he deserves a fighting chance. I'm not saying the kid doesn't deserve to prove his spot. Maybe he can surprise all of us. I mean, I'm open to the possibilities, but it just seems like a real messy situation with everything surrounding his club and everything else going on. So leaning out, but again, there's still room to prove a slot.
I would say for Sargent, if he didn't have the whole club kind of outline or this club distraction, I
Yeah,
would say he's in over Ajuman. But I think this
for
whole
sure.
distraction and his whole family thing, I think he, I would imagine he's not in the right headspace. I can't say for sure or not because I don't know the person. But I would say no. I think Sargent. I think you mentioned all the points that I was gonna say. I think everything is just a club distraction, and I think his focus is strictly on trying to get his family out of Norwich and back to North America because it seems like Toronto. But I mean, Rome is eventually going to play out, so we don't even know that part either. And maybe he just terminates his contract. Maybe he mutually parts ways. So there's that with Josh Sargent. But I think there's just too many distractions, and I can't say all these players are solely focused on the World Cup because I can't say that because it's so far
Hmm.
away still, and all these players are in club season at the moment. So I can't say that or not, but I can say 99% of these players are focused solely on their play or trying to recover to get back to their full fitness. Sargent to me just seems like
Yeah.
a player that is just solely focused on what's next and trying to get out of Norwich and get to the MLS.